Tagging graffiti in winter is not the same. And I'm not talking about those days when it's a crisp -5 out, there's a few snow flurries. No. I'm talking about when the high of the day is -30 degrees Celsius, the kind of cold where you go outside and the inside of your nostrils immediately freeze. In conditions like that, you can't afford to carry normal spray paint and have a little bit of excess paint freeze to your fingertips or your gloves. And that is why today we're taking a look at the top 5 graffiti markers and mops for winter time graffiti tagging. And if you stick around to see all 5, you'll actually have a pretty good 5 marker combo as well for any tagging conditions. So stay to the end for that. Number 5. So we're looking at graffiti markers here that can be used in those extreme conditions where you pretty legitimately need some serious gloves on. That, along with the temperatures messing with the kind of liquid you're using, means you need some very specific kinds of liquid as well to be tagging effectively in extreme cold. And because of that, the number 5 graffiti marker on this list is something like the Crank K66 or the Grog Metalhead. Let me explain. Both of these markers have caps that are easily removable and replaceable if you're wearing some serious gloves. And also, these 2 markers both have bodies that are super squeezable, which gives you that extra bit of control if your hands are covered in some big gloves or something like that. But that's enough about the gloves. This isn't the only reason I chose this marker. This specific K66 is the K66. We made an awesome formula where we mixed K66 paint as well as some ball pen fluid. It turned out to be a super awesome way to make a graffiti ink. You can see that video in the corner or the description. And that formula in here is significant. The reason it's significant is because inks in particular usually have a much lower freezing point than paints. We've all had that experience where we're trying to paint a piece in relatively cold weather and you just happen to place your hand on it and your hand just slides like butter on a surface and smears because the paint has frozen rather than drying. In fact, here is a list of rough freezing points for inks, including alcohol-based inks, and if you want to get really serious about it, xylene-based inks are pretty much impossible to freeze. So these metalheads are good for winter, but really it's the formula inside here that we made that really puts this on top. You guys know I don't really recommend Crink openly very often, but again, you can check that video out where we made a new formula for this K66 in the video I mentioned. Number 4. But the number 4 graffiti marker for tagging in winter is one that I don't think I've ever recommended under almost any circumstance. In fact, it's actually on our list of the top 5 worst graffiti supplies. What is it? Of course, it's the Flame Solid Wax marker. So why am I recommending it here? Well, as much as I love the Markol B paint sticks, and I really do think the Markols are the best value for money, especially if you buy them in bulk from that link I always link below, they're just not right for winter. You know, the paint sticks slide out of the cardboard, and Sakuras are hand mixed. Well, the problem with them is that even with like a light pair of gloves on, these twist up systems can be a real pain, as well as the caps. So in this very specific instance, the Flame Wax marker has you covered in more than one way actually. Firstly, the cap's super easy to remove and put back on. It's a nice big cap. And secondly, the twist-up system is so loose that you can do it with gloves just fine. But that's not the only way it has you covered. In case you're not hearing me, I said Flame Solid Wax marker. Wax solid markers like this are wax for a reason. They're like that because the staining agent in them is actually ink. And what did we learn about inks? Well, those inks will still be able to stain surfaces in those low temperatures. So in this very specific instance, the Flame Solid Wax marker seems to have us covered. Number 3. Now, number 3 is the solid choice for any graffiti writer, and that's because it's any big graffiti mob that you're gonna fill with, of course, a nice ink. My personal recommendations are something like the Grog Squeezer 25mm nib, the big guy there, or something like the Soltip 003. I'm recommending these two just because they have big caps, easy to work with, again, if your hands are covered. The bigger mops are usually a little more squeezable, in this instance especially the OTR Sole Tip 003. And the 003 is good in this instance for a reason. I learned the hard way that if you let these sit even for about a month, the nib gets totally dried out. Listen to that, that's crazy. So if you continue to use these throughout winter, that helps the nib stay juiced up and it won't dry out on you like that. It's a win-win, and you can check out the full tagging test of this guy in the corner or the description, of course. Number two. Number two is one that I've come to really like since reviewing it a couple months back on the channel. What is it? It is, of course, the Molotow 612 tank marker. A tank marker is something that you're going to want to fill with an ink, specifically an alcohol-based ink in this instance and most others. And you know what? It just slaps. There's no other way to put it. So it's definitely a good one to check out here. Number one, and the number one graffiti marker for winter graffiti tagging is a real blue chip pick in my opinion. And that's because it's really any of those angle chisel tips that you'll commonly see in metal bodies like this. Now this is the Krink K71. I wouldn't necessarily recommend the Krink version of a marker like this. In fact, I'll tell you a little secret that I don't think most graffiti writers have tried or know about. This is the IM14 Bleed Through by Aeromark or Mighty Marker. And this guy is the way to go. It has a super nice flowing solid valve system, and it says right on it that the ink it comes filled with is actually xylene based or contains xylene, which is actually really hard to find nowadays. And as a reminder, these are the temperatures that xylene would freeze in rather than drying. So for winter graffiti tagging conditions, xylene is poggers. Is that what the kids say nowadays? But anyway, for those of you who have stuck around till the end, this is a pretty good 5 marker setup in the first place. You know, you've got your steel tips, you've got a solid marker that probably could be substituted, some normal mops, and chisel tips on the extreme large and small end of the equation for you. You've got all your bases covered. I mentioned it before, but if you want to check out the exact formula we concocted and put into this Krink K66, that video is on screen right now. It'll be a good one that you might want to check out, and you can head over there right now. I hope to see you over there soon. And just quickly, I wanted to say a massive thank you to everyone who has picked up their very own Tags, Throws, and Pieces t-shirt or hoodie. That merch is linked below. It not only gets you some dope graffiti merch to represent our lifestyle here, but it makes a big difference in supporting the channel. So again, thank you to everyone who has jumped on that. I hope to see you over there soon. Until then, peace.